Well, hello, my beautiful, beautiful, powerful, everyday women of the world. Welcome to the Startup Stories podcast, where the ambitious everyday woman is heard, held, and served in life and business. I'm your host, Mia Frankel of Powerful Inc., the everyday woman's coach for living a peaceful and productive life. On this show, you'll hear relatable stories to keep you sane, grounded, and growing as you expand yourself and deliver your purpose to the world. And today you're going to hear another incredibly powerful story of a woman who built something bigger in the rubble of life and is now living on the other side of it. And it's so beautiful. It's so important for you guys to hear these stories and see yourself in them and stay strong and stay believing that something else is coming. Because we do have the power to change our circumstances. And it just takes a couple of little steps a day to get there. So, Coach B is joining me today. She's the founder and CEO of Young, Rich, and Rooted, which is a neurodiverse financial management business for Black women. And Coach B has lived through this and is a product of her product. So that's always important when you're looking for a coach, as somebody who will understand you. And when B and I met for a little coffee chat, we were introduced by a friend of ours. Um, you said something, B, that I really, really loved, that to me ties into how you've built your business. So, what she told me was that when clients book calls with her, she bakes in buffer times because they have ADHD and she knows that they're going to be late and she knows that the meeting's going to run long and she knows that the woman who's joining her is going to be all stressed out and distraught over that. And she can just be there with open arms to welcome them in and say, babe, you're safe here. I got you. And I get you, which is huge. Like I'm getting goosebumps. How much do we just want to feel seen? How much do we just want to feel understood? And yes, validated in that, validated that the way that I am is safe and normal. It's beautiful. And it's such an important gift to give to each other. So, Coach B is an accredited financial counselor. She's an ADHD money coach, and she helps gifted Black women rebuild their relationship with money from the inside out, which you've done and you're going to share with us, right? But better than that, you take it into the soul and you rebuild the woman from the inside out, that then she can be a better financial steward of what she has and build something bigger from, let's call it pennies, right? So we have nervous system regulation. We have like personality safety, like, oh, I'm ADHD. How am I ever going to be able to keep track of this? I will show you because I've done it. And most importantly, we're going to do it in a way that works for you. So, kind of custom and specific to who you are. So, I often, for many years, was trying to be a square peg in a round hole. And it's really difficult to live that way. And a lot of us are doing that because we think we should, we're being told to, we're pushing harder, we want the result. But women like myself and B are here to shatter those paradigms and let you be you and walk forward in a way that works best for you. So Bee's got a lot of beautiful accolades behind her. She's written her own book. She's got a signature program called Love Yourself Back to Wealth. She pulled herself out of the hole, out of depression, and is now a super badass, strong single mom raising a super badass, fabulous young woman and living on the other side of it. And she's going to walk us through that today. So, Bee, I'm so excited and honored to have you here for the conversation. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. And wow, what an introduction. I don't think that I've ever had someone quite articulate so many accurate points about what it is, the work that I do, who I do it for. And just the parts that you shared that stuck out to you, the story about the buffer time, which seems so small and insignificant to me, but how powerful it is for the client. So thank you for even noticing that.
Well, because you mentioned that woman who was exactly like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm so late, da, 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 da. And like, picture how often we've been like that. I'm like
Mhm.
that even when I try to get my daughter to school and get to work. And it's still taking a little, deeper levels of um, regulating to say I'm safe and it's
Mhm.
okay. And I am in a healthy workplace and it like they're not going to berate me for being 3 minutes late. They get it. And this is a big piece of what we need, right? So when you were at the beginning stage of your journey, you probably didn't feel safe or supported or seen, and had to create that for yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting when you say the beginning of my journey. It's hard for me to
Mhm.
reflect on that because you don't even know you're on the journey in the beginning of your journey.
Boom. Yeah,
So
yeah,
in hindsight, I can look back and see that I actually was on this path, but at that time, I didn't know. What I can say is that I feel like society has delivered us this myth, this lie that there is only one way to do life. There
hmm,
is one way to earn income. There's one way to spend it. There's one way to live it. There's one way to manage it. There's one way to get an education. There's only one way for you to be qualified. And we live in these rights and wrongs, these finite lines where you're either on this side or you're wrong. That we
yeah,
spend most of our life destroying our self-esteem because we don't fit into the mold that society said it should look like. You're not successful, you're not valid if it doesn't look like this. And that training begins in school when we give our kids
yeah,
multiple choice tests and we tell them there's only one answer. That
yeah,
inherently is in conflict with the neurodivergent brain who can imagine a multitude of options in an answer where you're
yeah,
like, this is right, but I mean, technically
yeah.
it's right unless, right, because we can see the various paths to getting there. And so right away we're beginning to feel like something's wrong with us because why can't I just come to this defined conclusion
One
when we
answer.
already see
Yeah,
multiple paths there. So from the very beginning, we're already being subconsciously given this notion that something's wrong with us, something's wrong with the way we think, because it should be easier than that when that's a part of our creative problem solving skill set. And we have not been given language that that is normal, that is okay. And there's a place where that skill makes sense. It's a place where it probably doesn't work, but there's a place where it's preferred
yeah.
and it's helpful and it drives the mission to the goalpost. But because we don't see it, we from the very beginning of life are already having our self-esteem destroyed.
That square peg round hole as a child before you have greater context to understand that that's what's happening to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that's very powerful. And it's also beautifully articulated, what you said about you don't know that you're starting your journey when you are. Yeah. So what now looking back with that 2020 hindsight, you were working, and then circumstances shifted and you shifted.
Yeah, I would say if I peg my beginning, I don't think this is my true beginning, but if I peg my beginning in the financial coaching journey of when I said, okay, this is what a financial coach is, because I had no idea it was even a profession. And when I discovered it, I was like, this is what I have been working towards. There was like an inner knowing, but
Hmm.
when you enroll in college, you don't see this as an as a major.
Yeah.
So when I looked at finance and I actively sought to study finance in school, I was only seeing corporate finance. I was only seeing maybe the investing side of it, and I knew that wasn't quite what I wanted, but I didn't have the language for it. Um, and when I stumbled upon my financial coach,
Yeah.
saw her, and I was like, oh, that's exactly what I have been wanting to do. Now, mind you, I had already worked in finance probably for 15 years prior to this, different
Mhm.
areas of finance, but I was acquiring little skills along the way. I worked in banking, which was the largest. I worked for MBNA, which was the largest credit card company in the world at the time. I worked in banking, I worked in auditing, I worked in tax preparation. I was a licensed life and health annuities um, agent.
Yeah.
I was a financial aid advisor. I worked in a lot of different areas in finance. So I touched these different places to learn indirectly about
Hmm.
finance.
Hmm.
And I knew that there were elements that were going to be important, but I wasn't doing it where I wanted to be doing. I wasn't serving who I wanted to be serving. And so there was this feeling of joy in the acquisition of knowledge, but
Hmm.
dissatisfaction in the impact that I was making. And
Yeah.
I would find myself in my last corporate job, I would find myself miserable because I only had the luxury of talking to you about your student finances, right?
Hmm.
But the women and men who were coming to college, they were coming because they wanted to change their life. They didn't come to get a degree because they were bored. They believed that if I come to this school, because they believed the myth that you just go to college, you get a degree,
Sure.
and magically everything will be better. And there's
Right.
nothing wrong with going to school.
Yeah.
Let me preface that. But they believed this myth that that would suddenly make it shift. And we were not giving them any financial education. You
Hmm.
weren't learning it in K through 12. You're not required to take
Hmm.
financial literacy in college. And we're making them take on thousands and thousands of
Yes.
dollars in debt with no context of what to do with it. So you get this wonderful job and you don't know how to manage the money you're getting. And so eventually you're broke despite now making a lot more money and you can't figure out what went wrong.
Yeah.
And the education that we should have gotten a long time ago should
Hmm.
have been around psychology and mental health and financial literacy. Those are two pieces of education that are left out of our education that should be introduced as early as possible and should be continued throughout. We're learning the same history every year in school, the same
Yeah. Yeah.
English
Like
every year
we're
in
we're
school.
being leaned in to be more of a cog in a wheel than a whole person who has sovereignty woven into their upbringing and their um, contextual knowledge of the world, right? So then, yeah, that just the visualization I'm seeing is like you just fall like a little peg in a line of marching
And that's by
people.
design
Yeah.
because school, in my opinion, is designed to train us to be an employee.
Yes.
They want you to learn
100%. Yeah.
just enough to work for somebody else, not enough to actually live as a human being, to thrive, to be able to make decisions for
Yeah.
yourself. They don't want you to make decisions for yourself because they want you to follow the rules.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
train you to follow
Yeah.
directions, which as an ADHD person, what?
Yeah, it's
Follow
so
directions.
confining. It's like,
What?
yeah, misalignment,
One thing
right?
we don't want to be put is a box. Let me do it the
Yeah.
way I want to do it. So school is inherently
Yeah.
frustrating for
Yeah.
somebody with ADHD because we do think out of the box and we're being constantly forced to think one way. But the psychology education that's not being provided doesn't allow us to earlier in life create context for the world.
Hmm.
So we don't understand the things that we understand. And again, our self-esteem is being destroyed
Yeah.
all along the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
The context for communication, for problem solving, the way we move through life, the way we need to organize life, the ability to self-advocate, to set boundaries, things that will later impact our financial health.
Yeah.
And so I'm starting this business and I want to be a financial coach and I'm green, I'm young,
Yeah.
and initially, I believe that what's missing is they just needed financial education. It
Okay.
wasn't offered in school. And if I
Hmm.
could just provide the
Hmm.
information
Hmm.
that they need, then things will be different.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I automatically know that a lot of people aren't in their financial situation because they're just reckless spenders. I knew that. And I
Hmm.
know there's a lot of financial professionals who have that assumption. You get the Dave Ramseys of the world who just believe you're just out here being
Right.
irresponsible. I grew up
Yeah.
in a community that was, struggling, right? So I saw people who were actively not out here buying a bunch of things and they still were struggling. So I knew that
Yeah.
wasn't the problem. I just assumed that it was just literacy that they needed, that if
Yeah.
they got access to quality financial education,
Hmm.
then the needle would be moved.
Right.
That felt like my experience. I was always my sister would be like, "You're cheap," and I used to be like, well, "I'm fiscally responsible." I'd always been very conscious about money
Right.
and make really good financial decisions, and I had the financial education, and so I just assumed that I was on this path
Hmm.
because I had the luxury of being curious about finances and being able to study it for myself. And then
Mhm.
I worked in these industries that gave me an indirect education. And I thought if I could just share what I have learned along the way, it would make the difference. False assessment. Because later in life, fast forward, after living through various touch points of trauma and
Mhm.
moving through, because we don't have the luxury of processing trauma. We could just have to get up, of abuse,
Yeah.
of different life events. I hit 2020 and I go through this huge depression
Yeah.
that was really a combination of a perfect storm. There was a lot of life events that occurred that created a survivor of domestic violence. Several years prior to that, I was a sexual assault victim, um, who literally discharged from the hospital and went straight to work.
Mm.
I didn't feel like I could afford
Yeah.
to take a day off of work
Yeah.
after being violently assaulted in that way. And I had a pattern of that. I was good at being able to just keep going, keep going, keep
Well,
going.
you avoid, move forward, don't
Um,
stop, don't stay in
and
there.
2020 comes and we all know 2020 is the year of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And in that same year, we're working from home. But prior to this, my job had changed locations. They changed the setup of the environment. I just had a conversation with a woman the other day, and I didn't even realize this, but I remember this being annoying for me, is that we went from a place where I could work in like my cubicle to an
Mm.
open floor concept. And they were
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it's going to be wonderful. We'll
No.
all be
Uh-uh.
working floor concept. And in hindsight, I could see that was so not ADHD friendly.
Yeah.
This was the beginning of me being not being able to work the same way I used to at work. And I'm always been good at my job. And so between that trigger and then the pandemic and all these things suddenly happening, what happened was I was forced to sit still. Up
Mhm.
until that point, I'd been able to outwork whatever I had been going through.
Uh-huh.
I never had to notice or like I could outrace the trauma. I could run
Yeah.
away. I could just keep
Yeah.
working. It
Stay
never
ahead of it.
happened.
Yeah.
But during the pandemic, I was forced to sit still, and it just felt like everything I had outrun my entire life caught up with me,
Mm.
and I just shut down and I could
Yeah.
not function. I could
Yeah.
not access the critical thinking parts of my brain. And I could not do my job, which was the hugest blow to my self-esteem because
Mhm.
I don't have a job that I can't get a good review from. Like I
Yeah.
never worried about you calling my last boss. I have a great work history of being able to do my job and do it exceptionally well. And I felt like I was ruining my brand because I
Uh,
was falling off and I couldn't figure out what was going on.
so like performing and pushing and still striving to be something, which falls into that assembly line analogy that we've been alluding to. So we get so trained to be part of that, that even when we're trying to change our experience of it, we can still be stuck in it. So this again ties back to you saying you didn't know that that was the start of your journey at the time of it, right? But I can see 2020 hindsight, and because you guys, the story is so familiar in, the 115 plus interviews of the show that women come up against this point. So I'm like, I know what's going to happen next. But in that moment, we don't. And obviously, I've lived those moments too, and will continue to. But it's so interesting to just kind of look at this in the layers of what's happening, right? And um, that sometimes this is what it takes in order for us to really break free of the molds we've been keeping ourselves in. So
Yep.
please continue. Yeah, this is juicy.
Yeah. So I'm sitting in it and I feel like I'm irrevocably broken.
Hmm.
And I don't know what is going on, but I know that something is wrong because I can't do the job. Like everything else feels like not a big deal, but this is huge because my
This,
identity is so
yeah,
wrapped up in
right.
my ability to
Yeah,
do my job well.
yeah,
Um, it is it is core to who I am.
right.
Um,
At that time in your life.
and I feel like I have a responsibility to do the job well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as a Black woman, I feel like we are all taught very early in life that we have to do twice as much
Hmm.
to
Yeah,
get half as
right.
much,
Yeah,
and we don't
prove
have the
yourself, work
luxury.
harder. Yeah. Show up
We don't have the
stronger.
luxury of
Yeah,
not being good at everything that we do, because it not only affects their perception of us, but it affects the perception of the next Black woman that comes behind us.
sure.
And so in order for her to get the job, I've got to do exceptionally well, so they never question,
Yeah,
if they hire a Black woman, can we trust her to do the job? I
yeah,
don't have the luxury, because I bear the responsibility of other people behind me.
yeah,
And so it's bothering me that I'm suddenly messing up, because people who worked with me in the past, they know that I'm exceptional. But what about the person who just got hired?
yeah.
This is the version of them that they know of me, and I struggled with that. And so I wanted to get back to me. I was falling apart. I was not getting out of the bed. I was not checking my mail. I was not paying my bills.
Yeah.
I was not doing things. And it wasn't from having a lack of money, because I was still working and getting a paycheck at the time. I just could not function anymore. I was, thankfully, my daughter was, she was in middle school, so she was old enough to be able to do a lot for herself.
Yeah.
But I still had to mother. And so whatever energy I had, I was storing up just to do what she needed, to be able to show up for her, but I didn't have the capacity for anything else. And so I took FMLA, and I expected that going on FMLA would make things better. I finally get a break to breathe. I could recover, but things got worse before they got better, because my self-esteem took a huger hit, because I felt like you've handled so much worse.
Right.
This I was defining the break as the thing that broke the camel's back, that was the thing. So I was judging myself based on that one moment. Like, this is what breaks you? You've been homeless, you've been beaten, you've been essayed, right? You've been through some things, and this, how weak. I was judging myself so harshly. And so I felt a deeper level of depression, because it's just an excuse. I told myself it's an excuse, because you've handled harder than this. I couldn't validate what I was feeling, because it didn't feel traumatic enough for me, this moment.
Right.
But it wasn't about that moment. And when I went to finally seek a mental health professional, and the first person, and she's like, oh, you have PTSD, severe depression.
Long list.
And so she refers me
And
to a
it's amazing that
psychologist.
you're even still functioning at the level that you are. Your
Right.
body's all messed up from holding all of this.
She refers me to a psychologist for testing. And so I meet with the psychologist. And again, he's like, you have PTSD for sure, complex trauma, uh, severe depression, and ADHD. Now, ADHD, I had suspected I had ADHD because my daughter's diagnosis. When she got diagnosed, I started reading books to try to be a good mom and figure out how to support her better. And uh, reading these books, I was like, oh, wait a minute, this sounds like me. And so I suspected it, but I never actually went the extra mile of being formally diagnosed. So when the doctor suggested that I had ADHD, I wasn't shocked by that. I was shocked by the PTSD diagnosis, because I had assumed that you could only have PTSD, or the context in which you always hear it is war. And I live in a huge military community. I live by like the Army base, the Air Force base, the Navy base. And you hear PTSD all the time, but it's always connected to military trauma. So I'd never considered anything that I'd gone through as having PTSD. And so hearing this context, I'm telling my doctor, I said, I feel like my brain is broken. Like, I don't know how to start my day. Like the little things, like I open my computer, and what app should I log in first? Like the most basic things. That was the sign. It was like, it was not that I can't solve how to do this project. I can't even think about what app I should be opening right now. I'm like, my brain is broken. I can't figure out how to get into my day. And the doctor said to me, and this was probably the most validating thing that he said that really began the healing part, is he said, you are not imagining. When you say your brain is broken, you're not imagining it. When you say your brain is damaged, it is damaged, because you have been experiencing PTSD. And I can imagine, just based off of what you've told me, you have experienced several traumatic factors over a long period of time. And what he said was that your brain, when you are in experiencing trauma or some sort of like danger, is that your brain releases a chemical that is supposed to make it easier for you to run faster, to make you stronger. That fight, flight, freeze response.
Mm-hmm.
Your body is rushed with these chemicals to be able to respond to the danger. But the danger is supposed to be short lived. If a
Yeah.
bear is chasing you, it's not chasing you for 10 years, it's chasing you for
Yeah.
that moment.
Yes.
But you have been outrunning a bear, a
Yeah.
tiger, a lion for years. Your brain has been flooding you with these drugs for years, and you're not supposed to be experiencing those chemicals
Mm-hmm.
for at that intensity for that long. And so when you say your brain is damaged, you're not wrong. It is literally damaging your brain. However, no neurons can be created. Like you, there new
That's right.
connections can be made.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's not an unfixable thing.
Yeah.
And that was like, it was validating to know I'm not crazy. I felt like I was gaslighting myself,
Right.
or I'm being dramatic.
Or that it's like the end, and how am I ever gonna shift this? So this is
Mm-hmm.
really beautiful because we don't, and as women especially, and you described the extra layer of being a Black woman and carrying even more pressure and responsibility to continue to push and just suck it up and just make it work and figure it out and take the next step. But at this point, our fingernails are like bleeding as we're clawing across, I don't know, broken nail and rock to try and get to the next step, and not appreciating that you are broken and that you can be safe while being broken, and find a way to um, reconnect with yourself, knowing where you're at, actually, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, say you go to the gym and you try and lift a 100-pound dumbbell, but you've never lifted weights before. Like, it's not a match. But we don't tend to appreciate life circumstances, body needs, um, neurodiversity, factoring into all of this, which I think is going to lead us now into how you start to shape the holistic woman and the holistic woman in finances, right? And start to come out like rising phoenix from this. But it's important for the listeners to kind of zoom out of their life in the moment if they can, and God bless that doctor that helped you see that, and that like held your face metaphorically and said, this is real what you're going through, and I'm going to help you get through it now.
Yeah, that was such a powerful thing, um, to validate somebody's experience as a first step.
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
what you're experiencing is real.
Yeah.
And as long as you don't see the problem or can't acknowledge the validity of it, you cannot move to the next step of getting the support that you need or change your growth. So many of us stay stuck in our situations because we either don't see the problem,
Yeah.
or we don't believe that we we don't believe we should have the problem. We don't believe it's valid. Like
Yeah.
there's some level of judgment about the problem. It's either not seeing it or not accepting it.
Like
Um,
what you said, right? Like I should be able to do my job. I should be able to perform these things.
because
Just,
I performed them in the past. And we
yeah,
believe that because at some other stage of life you had the capacity, that means that you should always have the
always have the capacity. Let's
and
stay
it
there for a second. Say it again for the ones in the back who might have been turning the car.
because we've had the capacity in the past, we make that mean that
Yes.
we should always have the
Yeah,
capacity.
that's right.
And
And
that's not what life is. And that
yeah,
is a huge part of my program, is helping them identify what they have the capacity for right now
yeah,
and being able to be honest about that so that they can get the appropriate level of support for the stage they're in right now, which may not always be that, but for
right.
this moment,
That's
be
right.
in this moment, what do you need today? And it took for me to go through all of that to understand that that was the missing element.
Mm-hmm.
I've had my practice for years at this point, but felt like something was missing because I was
Mm-hmm.
teaching them financial concepts. And for those who are in a good space, they can execute on them.
Yeah.
For those who aren't, I feel like I should be talking about some of the touchy feely stuff, but I felt like I'm going to be wasting their money if
Mm.
it just feels like therapy or counseling,
Mm.
right? Despite the fact that I'm a financial counselor, right?
And
Um,
coach, right?
right.
Interject for a sec because I love the freedom of coaching versus therapy,
Counseling. Mm-hmm.
right? There is there is just more fluidity and ability to hold someone and take them to a few different spaces than in a more clinical setting.
Mm-hmm.
And you're speaking exactly into that. So yeah, it's such a great way to meet somebody where they're at,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're in a good place or a place that needs a little bit of improvement.
Mm-hmm. And this is what I'm so glad that you brought us back here, because I do like to explain the distinction, because I am both a counselor and a coach,
Yeah.
and they have two different roles. And in within a session, I may be turning on the financial counselor hat more than
Yeah.
coaching, because I can't effectively coach if there's a moment you need to be counseled,
Yeah.
right? The counseling
Yeah.
side of it is more behavioral,
Yeah.
right? The coaching side of it is more practical. Here
Mhm.
are some tangible
Mhm.
steps. But if there's something we have to work through for you to even
Mhm.
feel like you have the capacity to take action on those steps,
Yeah.
I have to turn back on the accredited financial counselor hat and
Yeah.
be able to work through that piece for the coaching to even make sense,
Yeah.
for you to be able to do it. And that's why the idea that if you knew better, you would do better is bullshit,
Yeah.
because we know better. I know to not eat Doritos.
At
I
10
know that.
p.m.
I know why. I know why I can't. I know I should be exercising. I know I was supposed to get up this morning and go to the gym. My accountability partner was going to be like, "You didn't go to the gym because you texted me. It was like strong start. That means that you were starting with your morning. Why you didn't do that?" Because I forgot I had a podcast interview this morning. I wasn't going to have time to do both. But I know the formula for success. It
Yeah.
wasn't a lack of knowledge. So this goes back to my assumption when I'm young
Yeah.
in finance, is that if they just have knowledge,
Yeah.
they'll do better. If you know better, you'll do better. We
That's
hear these
right.
cute little antidotal statements and that
Yeah.
are
Well, I
grounded
like
in
to say
nothing.
it like it looks good on paper, but it's a
Yeah.
whole other thing to actually walk it out and to actually do it.
And so that depression proved to me that if you know better, you won't do better if you don't have the capacity for it. And at that stage, I knew better. I even had the money to do better.
Yeah.
I had no capacity to do better. And so I had to learn, how do you resolve a capacity problem? And so that's the stage that God found me in. And it required for God to pull me out of it, because I remember this day very clearly. I remember the side of the bed I was laying on. I'm laying in the bed
Mm.
and I was just like, I don't have it.
Mm.
And God said to me, you think your 100% looks the same every day.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Is you keep telling yourself you're not giving 100%. You're beating yourself up
Yeah.
because you're not doing 100%, because you think 100% today looks like 100% when you were 20 and you had no
Mm.
kids and you had no trauma. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You think your
Yeah.
100% is the same. 100. You are doing 100% today of what you
Mhm.
have available.
Yeah.
If you got $2 in the bank account and you give $2, the story in the Bible where the woman who gives her 2 cents,
Yes.
right? That was 100% of what she
What she
had.
had. Yeah.
And you keep judging yourself off of a bank account of $1,000, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you give $2,
Mm-hmm.
that's 100% like when you gave 1,000 because you had it. You don't have $1,000 in the bank account, so you are giving 100%. And I'm thinking about this like energetically, $1,000. You don't have $1,000 in your capacity bank account. And so he said to me, in the Bible, if you pay attention to every story that I tell, every miracle was based off of that person giving what they had.
Yeah.
And they always feel like it's not enough. The woman with the oil, all I have are these jars and this little bit of oil.
Mm-hmm.
All I have is what's Moses? I stutter.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't think he's a good speaker, orator, right?
Mm-hmm.
David, he just has his little rock. If you just
Yeah.
use the little bit I give you, if you trust, I'll make up the difference. I only require you to use what you have. And the whole point of it is because that is how you activate faith. Faith without works is dead. The
Yeah.
work is to do something.
Yeah.
You have got to do the little bit that you have. I'll make up the difference.
Yeah.
So if all you got is 1%, if you do your 1%, I'll fill in the difference, but I need you to try. I need you to just to be in motion.
Yeah.
I can't give you anything if you're not in motion. And so I was like, all right, God, I hear you. So it's my 1%. If that's all I got today, do my 1%. I was like, well, today, all I got is I'm gonna do the dishes.
Yeah.
I've been laying in bed for days. I'm gonna go downstairs and clean the sink. So if at least my daughter got to cook a meal for herself, she don't got to, wade
Mm-hmm.
through dishes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I get up and I go to myself, man, I wish my mama was here.
Yeah.
Because my mother's the type of person who she come in the house and she don't feel right if she not like
Doing
folding
something.
clothes or doing
Mm-hmm.
dishes. Like she don't feel like she doing like that gives her joy to be able to come in somebody's house and do something. And so I was like, man, I wish my mother was here because if my mother was here, she wouldn't judge me. She would actually find joy in being able to like help clean up
Mm-hmm.
the environment. Because obviously I'm laying in bed, stuff's just not getting done around the house.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, but I don't want to bother her because my mother lives 2 hours away. And so I was just like, let me just go do my 1%. So I get up, I go to the top of the steps, I walk down 3 of the stairs, and I hear a knock at the door. Who at my house?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you know me, I don't like pop-up visitors, especially when I'm depressed,
Yeah.
especially when I ain't done nothing around the house because I'm depressed, right?
Yeah.
I don't want nobody at my house unannounced on a regular day when it look good. I
Yeah.
definitely don't want you popping up at my house when I know it looks crazy. So who at my house unannounced during the pandemic? And so I go downstairs, I open the door. Can't even tell this part, but I want to cry.
I know I'm already crying because I know what's coming.
And my mom is standing at the door with a bag of groceries. And she said, I know you don't like pop-up visitors, but God sent me. And I just started to cry. And I said, I let her in and I said, I know he did. And I know that because not even 20 minutes ago, I said, I wish my mom was here, but I don't want to bother her.
Mm-hmm.
Now, mind you, my mom lives 2 hours away.
Yeah.
So that means that my mom was already en route
Yeah.
before I even thought to ask for her,
Yeah.
which means that God was answering a prayer before I could even ask for it.
Yes.
And she showed up because I did my 1%. He said, if you do your 1%, before you even know the needs that you have or the solutions that you would want, I will already be answering your prayer, but you got to do that part. I knew then, right? So I come
Yeah.
downstairs, I let my mama in, and maybe like 30 minutes later, my sister shows up.
Yeah.
And my sister and my niece, and then my other sisters. I'm like, what in the heck? First of all, I don't do pop-up business, and now everybody has popped up at my house. And I have never asked this question. I asked it, I feel like in real time, but they were like, oh, we just decided to come by. But I think they had conspired. I think they had suspected, which was interesting because
Mm-hmm.
most people never know when anything is wrong with me because I'm so good at masking. Like
Mm-hmm.
most of us, we pretend that we're okay. I had never said anything to elude a need or what I wanted,
Right.
but they had
She
all
didn't
come
ask for
over.
help. Yeah. No,
They had
I'll
all
figure it
come
out. I
over.
got this. I
Right.
can
They
do
all
this.
came in like, what do you
Yeah.
need me to do?
Yeah.
Right. My mom goes in, she starts doing the laundry. My
They're
sister
like,
doing
B,
the
the jig is
dishes.
up.
Listen, okay. My hair, let me tell you, my hair. Gosh, when I think about this, my hair had, this was before I was locked. My hair had gotten matted because I was natural at the time, and you're laying in bed for
Right.
at a time, the kinks kink permanently. And my hair is matted, and my niece sits down and she takes my scarf off and she just starts combing through my hair. I'm sorry.
No, this is
It's combing through my
beautiful.
hair. And I'm looking around, and my sister, who's an IT person, she sits across and she opens up her laptop
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, what do you need me to do? My little sister, she's sitting over here. What do you need me to do? And I bring out bags of paper, mail that I had not been checking
Mm-hmm.
for months. In fact, my mail lady had put a note on my mailbox that was like, you have to go to the mail in the post office to check your mail
Yeah.
because your box is so full. that's how long it had been since I had checked my mail. And I have a pretty significant size box. And so I had bags of mail. And so I was like, okay, we sit down. My niece is pulling my hair down. And I told my sister, can you call, this biller, and, ask, what they can do? Because I'd gone months now, not paying things, not doing things. I tell my little sister, can you go through this bag of mail and can you just sort it like this, right? Put anything that looks like a bill here, anything that looks like action statement. If it looks like obvious trash, throw it in trash. And in real time, I realized something's happening.
Yeah.
I and I, I'm looking around and it's like something turned back online.
Yeah.
I realized that they didn't come in and tell me here's what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I already knew how to do everything. I was actually giving them instruction,
Right.
which told me or reminded me, because I had been a financial counselor before already, you know how to do this. You just couldn't access this part of your brain because the trauma, the depression was so severe, it was shut down. You couldn't access it. It wasn't a lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
You could not reach that part because suddenly I'm like a CEO. You do this, you do that, you do that. Take this, write this down. And I've got this notebook, a very detailed notebook of how well it's organized. And I realize, I have a moment where I pause and I go, God, you are really dramatic. Like there was
He's
a
like,
way, like you could have just dropped this in a dream, because I realized what he's doing. There's a point where somebody had asked me a long time ago when I was homeless, and they were like, how did you go from being homeless to a homeowner inside of 4 years? Like, how did that work? And I was like, I didn't have like detailed notes because I never knew that that would be an important part of my story to help people. And I always said, I wish I'd written it down, because there was some things I had done very strategically to be able to buy my house with $21,000 in grants. Like my house is worth more than twice what I paid, right? I bought my house with equity. Like there were some practical things I had done, but I didn't know to write any of it down. So in real time, I'm sitting on this couch when I realized I'm directing, and I was like, you did all of this so I could write it down?
right.
You really got to be a little less dramatic, guys.
I think he's more
But
like, you're
okay,
dramatic.
I see where you're going with this, right? He knew he could trust me.
Yeah.
I felt like God was, this wasn't happening to me. This was happening for me. And I was like, he was like, I'm taking you through this because I need you to remember. It's been a long time since you experienced this type of financial hardship, this type of chaos. You don't remember the mindset, the obstacles, the real, what's hard, what's simple versus what's easy. And I need you on a cellular level to remember, because there are going to be women who are going to come to you, who are going to need your help. And you're going to give them advice that is technically simple, but not emotionally easy.
Yeah.
And I need you to know that, because you have to help them navigate that.
Yeah.
And financial professionals are talking about that. They're just like, just budget, just track, just open your mail, just make the phone call. But on a cellular level, I now remembered it is simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
And I needed to write that down so that this time, when I revamped my practice, it included that context of capacity, of emotional regulation, of mental health, right? And so I was like, okay, I get it. And so I remember saying to the guy, okay, well, if you haven't been going through this for a real purpose, I won't ask you to even take me out of this situation quickly. That's a crazy thing to ask for. I'm not asking you to change it. Like, you want a miracle. God, just fix it overnight. Like, make it all better. Like, you want God to just be like, put my bank account where it used to be, put my credit score where it used to be, clean my house where it used to be. You want the miracle. But I was like, okay, God, then I'm not even going to ask for the miracle. I'm not going to ask you to just fix it overnight. That's what I want. But I can't document this properly if it just happens overnight. All that I ask you for is to give me resilience. So I don't want to die. Because at that stage, I never wanted to die. I just didn't feel like I could live anymore. There's a difference. Like I never wished that I wasn't here, because I believe my daughter deserved to have her mom. I wanted to live for her. I wanted to live. I just didn't think my body could take anymore. I was like, I don't think I can. I'm trying so hard, but I don't think that I can. So, God, if you want me to go through this in order to help somebody, just please give me resilience. Please increase my capacity so that I can get through this moment, right? I will not waste this pain. And I was like, man, I should have got tissues in addition to my face. I was like, man, God, I will do this. There's somebody else, somebody's life on the other side of this who does
Right?
not have the capacity. I
Yes.
knew you're having me go through this because somebody else is going to go through this and they need me. They need me to show up. And so you trust me to go through this and not waste it. And I won't. And so I started writing everything down. I literally wrote down, and that's where the paper party, I don't know where my book is right now. That's where the paper party was created from. It was reflecting on that day,
Yeah.
was like, okay, you wanted me to write down exactly what I instructed my sisters and my mom and all of them to do, so that when somebody else is feeling overwhelmed with paper mail or feeling like I've let all this pile up, maybe I used to be able to do it, but now it's so big that I can't tackle it anymore. I was able to instruct somebody through it. That's why you want me to go through this. Okay, I'll write it all down. And I took my notebook out and I wrote down exactly what I did. I had gathered all the mail so I could at least have a clear space in my house, like
Mm-hmm.
all the mail into one spot. And then I told her to go through this and you put the junk mail here. And if it looks like a bill, and then I made lists and I realized that taking something from a pile of paper, like even if it was just organized in piles, the piles could still be nervous system dysregulating. But when I took all that paper and I wrote it on a list in a notebook,
Yeah.
the notebook was less intimidating.
Yeah.
Plus, I could take the notebook anywhere. So if I happen to have 10 minutes in the doctor's office where they are taking too long to bring me back, I could do a couple of things and that felt progress. And I started to see that my system needed to be documented and shared. And so I was like, okay, I knew how to do this because I'd done this for myself in the past, but I never wrote down what were the actual practical steps. But then he also showed me what it did for my nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Something as simple as taking something from a pile of
Mm-hmm.
papers to a list calmed my nervous
Yeah.
system, right? Having my sisters there and my mom there, and we're kikiing and laughing, and my niece. And I realized that the company of somebody shifted what this felt like. It didn't feel like work anymore. We're having a good time, right? It didn't matter what we were doing. Anybody who knows me, they know me and my sisters. My sisters are my best friends.
Yeah.
Like, we go together real bad. Like,
Yeah.
right? I have best friends too, but like,
Yeah.
if I didn't have any, it wouldn't matter. Like,
Uh-huh.
we talk all day, every day, right? We got
Oh,
Marco Polo's chats, 5 different family chats. Like, me and my family, we locked in. So
yeah.
it wouldn't matter what we were doing, that they were there is what shifted. And it was like, okay, what the problem isn't knowledge. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is I have had to get my brain back online.
Mm-hmm.
What calms my nervous system? What makes me feel safe enough to take the next step, right? And so that's what I realized that I was doing. And there was a lot about my practice that was innately doing it, but I didn't realize that's what it was. And that was the point of it. So then when I intentionally decided, okay, I need to serve this community. Women who have ADHD are more likely domestic violence victims, right? They were more likely trauma survivors. They are more likely to deal with anxiety. They deal with depression more frequently, right? There was a nervous system issue and not an intelligence issue,
Yeah.
because women with ADHD are usually brilliant,
Yeah.
gifted in some capacity. They are smart women. They usually have remarkable jobs, even, which is why they can't cope with, why is my finances in shambles when I'm the director of ABC?
Yeah.
Right? They can't, it feels like there's a conflict here. How can I be so good at this but so bad at that?
Well,
When
it's like the identity challenge that God faced you with, where you have one version and one narrative of who you think you are, but
mm-hmm.
it's not all of who you are. And he broke that wide open to you to show you and pull you out. And B, it's incredibly um, gorgeous that you prayed for resilience to grow through that experience of being broken and lost in yourself, rather than rushing through it, right? Because that's the reward and that is the actual work where we can't skip over the deep embodiment, which is, listeners, what she's talking about now is that um, building it from within, from your spirit self inside your body, and then out through your cellular composition. And there is it's not woo concepts. There's a lot of science, if you like. There's a lot of woo, if you like. There's a lot of information. But the application, which is what you're talking about, B, is where it becomes the new reality. And now we can look at you, we're 2026, so we're 6 years outside of that now, and you're living in an entirely new sense of self. So let's go there and see how all of this really transformed you and shaped the woman that you are today and the woman that you'll continue to become into the future.
Oh, now I am, as I'm sitting here, I'm understanding the title of Michelle Obama's book a lot more because
Mhm.
I always hate the idea when people ask me like, how did you get to the other side?
Mm.
Because I'm like, I'm not on the other
Yeah,
side.
I'm not at the other side.
I'm still in progress. I'm still in, you know what I mean? I still have a
Mm.
journey. Even if I think I were doing exceptionally well, I still believe that God is doing something in my life
Mhm.
for myself and for the people that I'm meant to serve. So I don't feel like I have arrived. I feel like
Mm.
I am still on a journey of discovering myself. And God has given me a mission to speak to the person that's right behind me.
Yeah.
Is that we often feel like the wisdom that we have is not valid until you're way over here.
Yeah.
But if I were here, this person that's right here, there's still something that I can help them with. In fact, I can still relate to them a lot more. I still remember on a very like the problem I had from before was I was so far removed from being homeless from that moment that I could not articulate. I didn't remember, right? I was so far removed from that I couldn't relate to them in the same ways. But when I went through it in 2020, I knew to document it because I also will not always be here again. But while I'm here, let me remember what those problems are so that I have the language to relate to you if you're right behind this problem, right? And so I needed to be able
Yeah.
to capture that information so that as I get further and further away from the problem, I still can speak to that person.
Yeah.
And so it's important for you to document every piece of your journey because there's something to gain at that step two, something to gain at this step two. There's something you have to understand. Like the people think that because you have a lot of money that you don't have financial problems. You have
Mhm.
different financial problems,
Mhm.
right? Now you have survivor's guilt. Now you have to deal with how to deal with people who need to boundary problems, right? Because
Mhm.
everybody's coming to
Yeah.
you to ask you for money, right? You
Yeah.
have different sets of problems. Do they love me for me?
Mhm.
Are they a friend of mine? Are they supporting me for the right reasons, right?
Mhm.
Those are problems that I didn't or you wouldn't have had before when you were struggling.
Yeah.
So there's something to gain at that stage that you need to document and you need to talk about because there's going to be somebody coming right behind you just at that stage and they don't want to hear about the whole gamut of problems, the whole range. They
Sure.
want to hear about this specific stage of life. So you have to gather how to navigate this specific stage of life so that you can help somebody navigate this specific stage of life. And I'm here to speak to a certain stage of life to
Mhm.
help somebody navigate something, right? And there's going to be a stage of life that I'm wildly inappropriate to support them for. And I'm going to refer them to somebody who's able
Sure.
to help them navigate that stage of life. There are people who come to me that got rich people problems. I'm not your financial, like, I would love to be able to support you through those problems,
Uh-huh.
but I ain't been rich enough to be able to help you
Mhm.
navigate. I don't know, understand the mindset, the problems that you're having on a cellular level. I can
Mhm.
imagine them, right? In the same way that I can't imagine the problems that men have on a cellular level. I can
Sure.
imagine them because I'm around you and I hear you talk about it, but I can't speak with enough conviction.
Yeah.
In the same way that a wonderful financial coach can't necessarily support a person with ADHD in the way that I can,
Yeah.
because they heard about ADHD, they understand it in theory, but on a cellular level, they don't understand what I experience. So they can't speak to it in the same way that a person well meaning can want to be a wonderful therapist for a Black person, and they might be able to support them. But someone who is Black and has experienced microaggression and different things that we go through in life,
Mm-hmm.
I understand things without them having to be said. And
Right.
that's important in a healing journey,
Yeah.
is to not make somebody do extra work
Yeah.
to explain themselves
Right.
before you can support them.
Right.
And so being able to support the women that I support is they don't have to explain what happened when they're late. And that's
Yeah.
why I giggled, to bring this full circle
Yeah.
to your point about the woman who was late for just a few minutes late for her session, and she was feeling so bad about it. Is I built that buffer time in because I don't want you to have to
Yeah.
explain. I know what
That's
happened.
right.
I know you don't not value my time.
Yeah.
I know that you think this is important. I know you've been looking forward to this all day,
Yeah.
and then time
Yeah.
blindness, object impermanence.
Yeah.
And so then you miss the appointment, or you're late for the appointment. And it wasn't because you're not motivated, which is what
Right.
people, you're just not motivated.
Where the judgment and the shame and the belittling comes back in, that,
Mm-hmm.
oh
You just
darn,
don't
I
want it bad
screwed up
enough.
again, or
If you
you
just
know,
try harder.
yeah, when am I ever going to get it together? Why can't I do this, etc. So that's that I got you and I get you piece coming back. So one of my mentors, Katrina Ruth, says all the time, you are the niche. You are your own niche. And that's exactly what you're speaking to. And the other piece that came out for me there is huge everything part of my heart. This, like, there's famous people who are awe-inspiring and amazing, right? Like Michelle Obama, grand,
Mm-hmm.
Oprah, love, admire, respect. But how many famous people are there compared to all of us so-called nobodies? Not
Mm-hmm.
as many. Not as many. And that relatability that you're talking about is invaluable to hold that woman who is exactly one step behind, or even a half a step of from where you are, that we can get each other through it together. So some pieces that come out of what you've shared so vulnerably, which I'm so honored and thankful for, is faith, spirituality, right? Don't lean always on yourself. There's someone greater here who is can't wait to meet you and take care of you, right? And that 1% that you gave had to be judgment free, had to be shame free, had to be small enough that it was doable, and God already knew he was going to blow your socks off with what he had in mind, right? Getting up to do the dishes. And then what happened, listeners? Community. You had women around you. And we might think, well, family, I don't have a family set up like that. What I have non-blood sisters that are my ride or die, that now I'm going to bawl, that have been there for me when I was in dire moments and needed that faith, spirituality, a new sense of self, a willingness to rewrite your sense of identity. God, I pray for the resilience to get through this moment so that we can use it for good together. Um, Intelligence, academic and emotional, of learning how to navigate these things and then putting them together. Because, yes, the systems we grow up in are of like male energy in the sense of production and action, and not embodiment, not fulfilling necessarily, not whole, right? A missing piece. Emotional is the feminine part that adds greater purpose to the action. So it's such a big, deep story that comes together and that shows why God chose you and the life that He gave you to create something bigger inside of what you were living. And
Yeah.
that is, it's so beautiful, and it's so important for us to hear these stories so that, again, we can feel normalized and then come out inspired, but not because you're Michelle Obama, because you're Coach B living in Eastern US, doing the thing while raising your kid, and shedding everything that you've attached to your identity over life and coming out in a truer sense of self. Because I mean, that's the journey. The impact is beautiful, the number of women's lives that you're changing, but then your own, healthy, selfish journey is the woman that you get to be. And the woman that you are today is like the Michelle Obama of the woman that you were in 2020, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that version of you is going, "Ooh,
Um,
what?"
what I'm most proud of is how much more I love myself. Is I realize, and this is part of the genesis of why my program is called Love Yourself Back to Wealth,
Yeah.
is I realize at the root of any financial hardship I've ever had was a lack of self-love. Because I thought I loved myself because love looks like maybe sometimes defending yourself, maybe buying yourself nice things, taking care of yourself, getting your hair done. Like
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I loved myself, but if I really paid attention to the decisions that I had made when I made like maybe some not so desirable financial decisions, it
Yeah.
was rooted in fear.
Yeah.
It was rooted in uh, abandonment
Yeah.
or worry about abandonment. It was rooted in feeling like I had to be perfect,
Yeah.
right, to be kept, whether it was at a job or in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was rooted in trauma, and not wanting other people to experience what I had, feeling like if I make a decision that's for me, I'm traumatizing someone else in a way that I had been traumatized in the past, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to simply having a boundary and it just not, I mean, not having the capacity today to do it.
Yeah.
So, feeling the need to overgive. And
Yeah.
so loving is so important. And something else that you brought up that I wanted to mention was like that person who feels like they don't have that family. I get that quite often. Is people say to me and my sisters, like, I wish I had sisters like yours. Like, I see our relationship and I'm jealous. I wish I had that. And I used to think that it was very normal to grow up
Yeah.
in my family dynamic,
Right.
that everybody's family functioned that way. And I realize now that most people actually don't have um, that level of closeness and complete lack of fear that behind my back somebody's saying something. Like,
Right.
there isn't that. And so, how do I give other people that sense of community if they don't have it? If they don't have friends and they don't have a good relationship with their family, you still have to have community. I don't believe that we were designed to be here alone. God
That's
said
right.
it's not good for man to be alone. And I don't think he was just talking about a wife.
Yeah.
I think he was just instructing us that we were supposed to be doing things in a community, which is why in my coaching program I call them Fin Sisters. It's a Fin sisterhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you have the capacity, just like you did, Mia, to go design the family that you need.
That's
If
right.
you don't have
Yeah.
the family that you wanted, to create it for yourself,
Yeah.
to find the community that fits the stage of life that you're in, and that may change. That means that the community that you had for this stage of life is not appropriate for the stage of life that you're in right now. You see me fanning myself because I am I've had a hysterectomy and I'm probably approaching menopause a little earlier than I wanted.
Yeah.
And so I'm going through this stage of life. And I
Yeah.
need somebody who understands that, who
Yeah.
doesn't think I'm being pretentious when I pull out my feather fan,
Yeah.
who is like, she is hot and cold and hot and cold. And they're
She
not judging
fancy. What's
me,
going on?
right?
Yeah.
Who gets that, right? But you have to develop that community. But more importantly, you have to decide that you're worthy of love, you're worthy of exploration, of constant curiosity, in the same way that you want your partner to be curious about you and understand this stage of life that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
The 20-year-old version of you that you fell in love with is evolving. To be
Mm-hmm.
curious and not judge the decision, go, why did you do that? But not from like a why did you do that, but like, why did you give when you didn't have it?
Yeah.
Like a friend.
Yeah.
Like, talk to yourself
Yeah.
the way you talk to your best friend. And I was my biggest bully.
Yeah.
Oh, the way I talk to myself, right? When you can get to that point of I'm making a decision that I'm going to love myself, I'm going to be curious about myself, you'll begin to see yourself, understand yourself, and you'll understand what's needed to support yourself to get to that stage, which is why I believe that you can love yourself back to wealth.
Yeah.
And so that's
Yeah.
the heart and soul of my practice is to explore, to understand that root work
Mm-hmm.
of what it is Like not the fruit. We know overdrafts and we know
Yeah.
the fruit problem, but what's the root of that? And can we scaffold it? Can we protect it? Can we put systems into place while you're healing, while you're developing habits, while you're desiring to, so that you can get the outcomes that you want more often
Mhm.
than you're not. And I believe that that's entirely possible. And that's what I do with my clients, whether it's one on one or in my group community every single day.
Yeah. Amazing, amazing, and important work. And like just a closing thought um, to follow on to that is that for you, it's been the money journey, but we each have like a core pillar of life that leads us and that serves us as a coach, as a brick and mortar business, or and especially just as a everyday woman out there in the world that can provide that relatability and safety and encouragement to another woman who's looking for it, who's praying, who's like on her knees searching for it, and then God, boop, will fill in that 99%, which like this conversation is just oh, so much happened. It's so beautiful. So beautiful. So, listeners, you must go and follow Coach B on her socials, subscribe to her newsletter, her freebies, get her in your space because even if it's not money that you want to improve in your life, like who doesn't? But there's so much benefit to seeing a woman like you be showing up in the world and doing the work that you're doing in a very holistic, aligned, and fulfilling way. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We can find her at youngrichrooted.com, and then I'll drop all the other links in the show notes for us here. And yeah, just incredible. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was a wonderful conversation. It really was.
Wow, guys, what did you think of that? My whole spirit, my whole heart, everything is blown wide open. That was so exquisite. And I'm just so honored to have had Coach B join us and share that. And then I am going to hold on to her. Another great score for the Rolodex. Such a gift. So, what's my invitation to you at the end of this show? I want you to come hang out with me in the Phenomenal Collective. Paula, my business partner, and I are going to convert that into a paid membership Facebook group. Yeah, starting September 2026, where we're going to build this insanely gorgeous sisterhood of women who grow together, who share together, who bring opportunities together, who build business, life, service, very holistic, very full picture space to hang out and to be your full identity, your full God given identity, and philanthropy and Bible studies and so many beautiful things. So we're building that out and starting that launch over the next 3 weeks. And so that is my current invitation to you, as well as just to continue to share this podcast, to leave a review where you're listening, to pass the word around about the stories that we're sharing here and be part of the community. I don't want passive listeners. I'm going to move your butt into action. So get out here and join us and be part of the movement and be part of doing, oh, this is good. This is for you, Coach B. Be part of doing your 1% and let God help you and use us to fill in the gaps. I love you so much. I believe in you more than you believe in yourself. And we're here to link arms and walk it out together into our dream reality. So have a powerful day, and I'll see you at the next episode. Bye.